us to get our hands on those recommendations, because one of these groups asks specifically what are some rate restructure reforms that we can put forth. But from what I've heard yesterday, I saw Lori Baker in Chicago, and she said that she thinks that they've cleared the legal channel, but now they're waiting for approval from somewhere a little higher up to be shared. And I believe there's some hesitation because I don't think they are cost neutral.
I think to Art's point of we're rushing into this, why would we even think about doing work on in a rates work group if we have this report that is already out there, that we hired experts to come in and provide to us? Why would we duplicate that work? I don't think that there's any movement that can go forward on that subcommittee until that report is released.
Or if the product is any different, it's a Vision Quest product.
Then what
does that say?
And yeah, it is. It could be. And Sheila was on the call when we had the rates restructuring reform. So the federal CMS put out some guidance to the National Association of DD Directors about this option under 1915 C&I waivers to provide performance-based incentive payments for services under the waiver. And we got into some general discussion of, what would we want to get out of that? What parameters would we want to set around utilization to ensure, when you talk about performance-based, you certainly don't want to put any provider in the situation of which they're doing work but not being paid for it. How would that look? And we wanted to begin that discussion, but it quickly became apparent that, if we rush into this, we could really nip ourselves in the butt. Yeah, if we put something together before we're fully even informed of what CMS would want to get out of it, what we'd want to get out of it, it wouldn't be in our best interest. And so I think this is kind of furthering this notion of perhaps our recommendation should be to ask for more time to slow this down, especially given political and fiscal environment of the state. Policy is not.
We already missed the deadline in July, so what's the hurry?
Okay. Unless anyone else has anything else to share, I'm told to try to wrap up by 11, but we'll see how that goes. I want to move into DRS. So you have in front of you, where am I at, some draft recommendations that I put together for us to talk about. I had agreed to advance some recommendations to Chris Smith and her staff at the division regarding referrals. And I really want to have a kind of a broad, long-term thinking discussion with all of you, because referrals have been an issue since I've been here, and that's only been 5 years. And from what I've heard, issues have been problems for decades. These recommendations, I may need to walk them back a little bit. Rereading them, I might have been a little more angry than I realized when I was writing them.
It's all right, we like it.
But so the issue from what I hear from referrals, from many providers, they are stagnantly low. They are significantly low. Not the providers, not the referrals that you are initiating, but the ones that you're receiving from your local offices. And what we have is a system in place in which DRS has entered into a contractual agreement with you, providers, but is not doing anything on their part, or not doing enough on their part to help you meet the obligations of those contracts. And whilst maybe in some other places, they're having people that are exceeding their contracts. So they're floating hundreds of thousands of dollars all across the state, and we really have a disjointed system of contracting and funding. And the fact that referrals are significantly low, and they say that they do not have as many people walking into their doors, and they have enough staff now because they've hired enough people. Why then is it taking anywhere from 4 weeks to 4 months for them to process a referral? I kind of thinking about the logic behind, they're not making referrals because they're not having people walk through their doors. They have an adequate staffing ratio within their division. Then why are they unable to process referrals that you initiate within a reasonable amount of time? Their claim is just illogical, but they're claiming that they're on track to meet their referrals. And unfortunately, I'm feeling like I don't have the ability to extract data that is necessary for us to justify our concerns from that division, because they don't have it themselves. They don't even keep track when a referral is initiated by a CRP who did it. So when someone comes in the office, there's no mechanism for them to track who sent them that referral and make a look at and analyze what CRP is initiating, how many referrals compared to what our counselors are doing themselves. And we've heard them make statements that they have told their local counselors that they need to start serving upwards of 80% of the people that come through the doors themselves, but yet they won't admit that they're doing that. And so what I wanted to accomplish with these recommendations when I put them together was a couple things. To draw immediate attention to what is happening this fiscal year, because we are butting up against the timeline to realize some relief. You know, if you want to get a 90-day outcome, you're looking at the end of March. We're about at the beginning of March. But further, make some recommendations that touch on a few issues. The time frame for processing referrals that you initiate, and the lack of referrals that the division is providing to you. That's what I was trying to get out of this. And I still feel maybe it's necessary to put something to them to draw attention to the issue that we're feeling this year. But given a couple other things that are going on, specifically the move away from cooperative working agreements and menu contracts and putting everyone into Milestone, which is a performance-based contract, and the intention to move supported employment to performance-based contracting, and all of their contracts performance-based contracting within 2 years, I'm really seeing some concern that they are going to severely jeopardize system capacity and your ability to continue serving people. So I am of the thought that perhaps it might be best for us to take an initiative to generate our own data within our membership, and perhaps anyone else that wants to participate. So we can compile impact statements to give the division and say, look at what you've done and look at how it's impacted us. You know, I've heard from an alarming number of our members that say they're about ready to just drop their DRS contracts, just quit doing business with them. And that's just unacceptable. That anyone has to even tangle with that notion is just unacceptable. So I'm of the mind of generating some impact statements, trying to drive our own data, and making long-term recommendations to perhaps restructure some foundational ways in which we do business together. Because we've seen one example specifically, Indiana moved totally towards performance-based contracting and then walked back from it because it didn't work. And they have hybrid models of supporting people, you know, through the Milestone contract, but utilizing other funding sources where you can immediately start doing business with someone when they walk in your door. So I just kind of want to put it out for discussion. I want to, again, just to recapture, I want to make a statement to Chris Smith and that division that there is a significant problem, whether you're going to admit it or not. We're going to keep driving it. The referrals are down. And I would like for this committee to make a play at some long-term recommendations to restructure the way that we do business with that division. So that's what I'm feeling. Please share your thoughts.
From my standpoint, I think you're superb. I think you're 100% on target. The only thing I would ask, or I don't know if it was adding, is I know you don't want to mess up the relationship with Chris, but can we make sure that Demas or Vegas also knows that this is
I have requests from Greg Bassey and Jennifer Hammer for us to share our recommendations with them as well.
I mean, I think that's a great idea, Art, is, you know, elevating it to someone else, because I think that, you know, of all services, employment, you know, generates self-sufficiency. It creates taxpayers in the system. I mean, this should be a program and a service that this administration loves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that we can kind of put that spin on all of the benefits that we all know, you know, with employment. And if this group is not sending referrals on, they're causing, you know, the system to be stagnant or decline, you know, that is something that they need to turn their attention to. I think that DRS is continuing to worry about things that happened 5 or 6 years ago when they discovered that there were 1 or 2 providers around the state providing supported employment forever and not getting any outcomes for. I mean, they need to move on, you know, from that concept. And as far as I'm concerned, that was their problem, because they didn't have the proper systems in place to monitor what was happening. I don't get a sense from DRS that I know where they're going. I mean, I think that there's a lot of talk about WIOA, there's a lot of talk about this and that. I don't know that I feel like I know where this division is going.
I don't think they do either.
And you're probably right.
I think there's a disconnect in their understanding of the system. I mean, just for example, one of the I don't want to harp on how bad they do their job, but one of the mandates under WIOA was for them to do outreach to people receiving 14C wages. And when they were beginning the process of reaching out to everybody, they're saying, we just don't know how many people are out there. Is it 1,000? We don't know. It's like, really? Because it's not 1,000. Anyways, I want to get back to the point though, because I really want to ask you I believe it's useful and I hope we'd get enough. I think for us to truly make an impact in whatever statement we make in our recommendations, we need to have some of our own data for how this is impacted. Because when we've asked them for some data, they don't have it. They either survey our own members.
Well, and I think even
survey our members and make our own data. And perhaps, I mean, it's a question that we're going to need to ask is how do we, should we involve groups outside the membership? I think that's a question that just needs, that may be a question that needs to be addressed, because I have some hesitation of them getting wind of what we're doing too. And by them, I mean DRS.
I don't know how to get this number, but I think a significant piece of it, and it's certainly a part of their system that they are very concerned about and spend a lot of time talking about, is a transition of youth population.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't get the sense, and maybe you guys disagree with me. I mean, we have some school districts in our area that do a pretty good job, helping those students to become gainfully employed. But that's not everyone. And just even the number of referrals that we see from school age kids making its way from the school, getting through the DRS system, and then onto us for employment services has decreased over the years. So you talk about other groups. I have no idea how we could tap into, does the school have any, the school system, do they have to report any transition data around number of kids leaving that's employed, and then taking a look at.
Imagine they don't report.
They have to.
That's a good question.
It's just that they don't know how to pull it out, put it in a paper. Because even when you go back to, we don't know how many people are in sheltered workshops. All they have to do is go to Federal Department of Labor and say, how many do we have in Illinois, and give us the numbers that they reported on their last application.
Exactly.
It's done.
Exactly.
I know that.
Would have given it to them.
So there's the STEP committee, which is I'm sure you all are familiar with the STEP committee. It's like the FAC except for the schools.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I don't know if many of them belong to an association that's similar to IARF. I don't know that. I would not think that they do, but I didn't know if anyone does. I can certainly look into it, because that's a good question, because one of the mandates under WIO is for them to start, I believe it's 50% of one of their title fundings for support employment now needs to go to youth age transition services, transition support employment.
Which I'll take from the contracts that aren't performing.
Yeah.
Transition planning committees. I'm not sure if, how well established they are around the state. In certain areas, there's some pretty strong transition planning committees, TPCs, that exist.
Okay.
That is the school provider network of people that come together monthly during the school year and talk about employment and other related services.
Okay.
Can help you get in touch with a few
Okay.
people.
Yeah, thank you. We actually might have done that by now.
I read something, I can't remember where it was, but I believe the Institute talked about the same topic, and I saw something from Kathy Carmody that she was going to try to engage DRS in this conversation too, so you might want to call her.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this is the area, employment first. We what are those areas that have mutual concerns amongst, the Institute, among the ARC, and we can create a louder voice that this system isn't working. It just may add some additional attention. So,
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. I'm new to this, so I need to ask. I believe we need
See
to
if there's anything else.
Well, I think we have a couple recommendations that we need to move.
So
So
which ones are those?
sorry for my ignorance. I think one was the first was to ask for a extension on the timeline for completing these provider transformation.
So you want to make a motion on that? Art does.
Second.
Okay.
All good. Okay. And then the second. Yeah, the doors piece, the way I would recapture the recommendation is to begin compiling our own data and as much data as we can generate ourselves within the provider community to make an impact statement to the division on how what the steps that they've taken with contracts thus far has negatively impacted providers, your ability to serve people, and then pursue making long-term recommendations to generally restructure the way that we do business together.
Anyone want to
We just add
make
maybe
a motion?
also the part about reaching out to the other, like the institute and our
Mhm.
community, if they would collaborate with us on gathering some of the data.
Okay.
Just to strengthen that.
So are you making that motion? Anyone second?
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Any other business? All right. Be safe out there.
Oh, before you guys leave.
Oh, there's
there was
the
something
documents
that
hot
went
off the
with your,
presses.
Packets, or the application for the IRF future, and there was a cover letter, but the packet didn't get printed this morning. My apologies, so.
We're going to read that again.
Yes. Yep, there's more information, and you should expect to see something later this afternoon, sent out electronically as well.
Every special ed district has a transition coordinator. That group would be an interesting interview to see what Doris says about us.
Is that for Bisbee?
Transition coordinator, I think, is through DRS.
Oh,
Or maybe not.
this is a
Oh,
text coming in
district.
from Greg. I guess who's talking?
Greg is there. Hi, Greg. Yeah. Every district has a transition coordinator. That is, yes. And I do believe every district does have a transition coordinator. I also, like in DuPage County, all of those transition coordinators and people and DRS staff providers come together once a month for a meeting. And I know that it happens on the north side. I think it's TPCs were a really established group. Transition planning committees.
Look into that a little more.
And it's kind of turned into we're adjourned, by the way. Sorry, we're waiting for me. It's turned into like more presentation type, having guest speakers come and talk. But it would be interesting to have that group if we could find a way to get feedback from that group, because I don't think DRS counselors think that this is working well.
I don't know. I get
There's something
frustrated
going
because
on.
I don't know, like I don't have the relationship with the counselors that you guys do. But what I get feeling, I almost like, do these people give a shit?
Not as many of them that should, and that has been a decline over the years. I can remember,
Just go on.